Hey, Jesse Blaze Snider here, the coolest geek alive. If you like to listen to my geek culture entertainment show every Wednesday and Saturday. I'm sorry I missed my Monday appointment here for Everything They Don't Want You to Know. I was helping my family move. The Snider family has a really cool entertainment complex that we've built out in North Carolina to do movies out there and other things. And it's awesome. And the family needed a little help. There's like three families moving in at one time. My mom and my dad, my sister, and my brother and his wife and kid. So there's a lot of things to move. And I did pretty good, except on the last day, I just did a bunch of moving of boxes and put them on my neck like an idiot. And I hurt myself. But anyway, so today's episode is on astrology. And astrology is an interesting topic. You know, there's a lot of people who love to poo-poo it and say that, there's nothing to it. And I should write a play. Astrology, they like to poo-poo it and say there's nothing to it, but there is. I have a quote in the description that is from J.P. Morgan. You know, it's unverified, but this has become the saying, and there's a lot of truth to it, and I'm going to try to express to you why there's so much truth to it and why it's something that is worth having some awareness about. The simplest way to, put it would be that, your body is a lot of water, right? And that water, if you may notice when you go to the beach or you go to the ocean, is ebbing and flowing. And based on where you come into our reality, based on the moon and the sun's position and the stars, changes, or I shouldn't say changes, I should say that is the imprint of who you are. How can this be true and so easy to perceive? Well, if you think about it logically, and I have because, former atheist until I was 29, and I started to change my mind about a lot of things slowly at first. It's been about almost 15 years of learning. But everything is a consciousness. And the consciousness can basically only fall so many ways. You make a chart and there's good and there's the antithesis of good, there's evil. And then there's some sort of like neutral good and some sort of neutral evil. And then there's some sort of, extra cruel, terrible evil, and there's some sort of lesser evil. And there's some sort of extra good and there's some sort of less. It's like a wheel. And, but the wheel isn't quite so, it's not just, oh, well, these people are evil and those people are evil. It's way more complex than that. We might run through like the signs and give you like an idea about the signs at some point. But remember, we're back to this wheel of we're using the metaphor of like good and evil and whatever, but consciousness is falling in that way as well. The way the mind thinks, the way the mind perceives, the way the mind processes emotions or logic, the way it will handle situations. I saw somebody talking the other day. It was a wonderful like minute of conversation. I'll try to boil it down. It wasn't really a conversation. It was just this guy talking about how every parent is raising a different kid, and I'm going backwards. Every kid has a different parent. And there's a lot of layers to this, and one of the layers pertains to this conversation, which is why I'm bringing it up. But, he said the parents are different ages. This is a great thing to acknowledge. In my family, there's 4 kids. I'm 15 years older than the youngest. So that's a 15-year gap of my parents and who they were as people. Do you think I had the same parents as they did? No. The other children in the middle had sort of a learning curve version of my parents, both from them interacting with me and adjusting how they were, and them adjusting as people. But then additionally, as they pointed out, each child responds to you differently. And each child is different and has a different temperament. So when and I tell you what, having kids is the thing that teaches you about the horoscope to some degree, because each child is just so unique. And I'm sure if I had more than a dozen children, they would continue to be unique, because there is uniqueness, a lot of uniqueness within the traditional 12 horoscopes. And I'm going to talk to you about a 13th as well. But all of the horoscopes have their place. All of the horoscopes can be evil. Not every, Pisces is evil, or every Leo, or every Aquarius, or every, just because you've had a bad experience with one sign doesn't necessarily mean anything. A lot of the signs go well together, and some of the signs don't go well together. It's really just a lesson learning about astrology if you take it the right way and understand what's being interpreted. It's math. There is a bunch of different mathematical equations of the human consciousness coming down. It can only be broken up into so many pieces, and these are essentially what the pieces look like. Generally speaking, even if you're a Virgo, or I'm a Virgo, even if you're somebody, let's say, who has all sorts of other placements in your sign for other signs, the Virgo reading, and I know people tend to say, oh, there's a chance there's yes and no. There's some truth to the sort of vagary in some of the language, but that is inherent in the simplicity of what's really being talked about, which is math and movement and how things change and how things come in. And this, which we'll eventually get to, is why billionaires do their astrology and not millionaires. There is a natural flow to the calendar as you see the months go by and the seasons change, if you're somewhere where the seasons change. But I mean, even anywhere where the seasons don't change, there's still a season change. The crops come in, and when you pick them, and then there's a time and for everything as things ebb and flow, and they ebb and flow within the stars and within the moon and sun, especially, which is the main thing sort of affecting the tides and affecting us astrologically, but even the planets do as well. Knowing these subtle effects that are happening can help you to go to the next level in your life, because it can save you from beating yourself up during a downturn of energy when you don't know and you're trying to work and you can't get anything done. I mean, it's not writer's block. It's actually just astrologically like a bad moment for everyone, or for you. So when you understand what your astrology is, you can essentially ride the wave of gravity that is causing the tides and causing changes within you, and caused you to imprint in the way you did in the first place. And it's very written in the stars and all that kind of stuff, and that is the the truth of it. These things are immutable. You can ignore the truth of an astrology reading by saying it's conveniently worded or whatever you might say. But if you're willing to open up yourself to these things, they are very useful, very helpful. There's a person on YouTube named Victor Odo who just basically does, because I'm not a billionaire yet. I still have not gotten myself really good about being my riding the waves. And this is a lesson to me as I say this out loud, because this is embarrassing. I mean, I'm not that embarrassed, but it's true. It's something that I know that I would like to do. I have kind of done it in a way or two. There's some cool apps that you can find. I've used a number of them now, so I don't know which one to recommend. But there are some apps online that can like map out your astrology. Sometimes I'm a perfectionist. I'm a Virgo. This is one of the things you might hear about Virgos. And so the thing that's been stopping me is that my sister managed to get a really accurate reading of my birth and like my time, and like the most like accurate astrological reading of me that I could get. And I want her information because I don't have it. And when I called my mom to try to get it, she was like, I don't know. And my sister was like, I don't know. And I'm like, damn it. So I've stopped. I stopped pursuing it, but I'm going to. But there are many things that I like learned personally, just like as a person from my horoscope. Never took it seriously. I was very skeptic for 20, almost 30 years of my life, and probably 30 years of my life before I was like even like thinking about horoscopes and things like that, and just started to get curious about them. There was a very famous story that I guess I told now about reading my brother's horoscope, Cody, and it said that this person may seem like, they didn't use these words, but a bit of a fuck up, like he's accident prone, prone to disaster or whatever. And it was interesting that they were saying that, because at that time in Cody's life, he was articulating a feeling that he was being perceived that way, and he didn't like it. He wanted to change it. So it's I was like, huh, that's interesting. They're literally saying what Cody said to me. And I don't know if I guess on some level I was perceiving him that way, because he did have a lot of accidents and stuff. I'm not particularly judgmental, so I don't think I necessarily like had gone that full place until he kind of articulated it like that. But there was a lot of truth to that. And it said in this thing, it was a Mayan horoscope, Mayan astrology book. And I was curious about it because of the 2012 and all the interesting stuff there. So I'm reading it on the flight back from Mexico, and I get to the next part, and the next part says, so this person may seem like, a bit of a fuck up, but in reality, they have chosen to take on more adversity in order to grow their soul quicker. And at that time, it was early in my spiritual development, but I was communicating with my grandmother regularly, who had passed away years earlier, but she was my guardian angel. And apparently all of us have two angels and angels are just basically souls, usually ones that have very strong connections to us. One chosen to guard us, and another chosen to be a muse for us. Like usually the guardian is like a grandparent type, somebody who, or a father if you'd lost a father, somebody who you've got strength from, like you felt protected by. And then the other one is the muse person is more like a friend type person, somebody who you felt very encouraged by for being you, somebody who encouraged you to be yourself. So I hadn't connected to my other guide, which was at the time has changed now, but it was at the time was my best friend Chris, who had passed away. Go back to other episodes. I'm pretty sure I've talked about this before. I called to my grandmother in my mind on the airplane, and I said, I'm reading this book, and I know that they're with me all the time and, aware of what's going on. And I said, Grandma, is this true about Cody taking on more adversity to grow his soul faster? And she said, yeah. And I didn't think about it very long because, I just always like to be like a good big brother and strong for my family and stuff. And I just kind of quickly said, in my mind, well, then I choose to take on more adversity. And I did not think about that again for a very long time. But boy, did the adversity come. And while I've been dealing with adversity, I've been listening to that Victor Odo guy because he does these astrological energy updates of things that are going on because of full moons and various solstices and shit that has an effect on the human body and the water in you, and depending on what your water may be, and blah 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 blah. And holy shit, he's just always right. It's whenever I'm feeling like shit, and at first I started thinking oh my god, what have I done, or what is wrong with me? I go, I wonder if Victor has another video, and I'll go to YouTube, and sure enough, 5 things you need to know about the upcoming solar eclipse. So coming up to the solar eclipse, you may be feeling like shit. Oh yeah, really? I am feeling like shit. But he's just always on the money, and he's not totally pulling this stuff out of his ass, even though some of it he is. He's an intuitive, and he's very accurate. But so much of this is just the astrology that he is understanding better than I'm understanding right now. And I'm not going to get into super depth of any of this stuff with you guys, but it's an important thing that people deal with all the time, that people poo-poo all the time. And billionaires do their astrology, dude, because it's easier for me to go, okay, this isn't the time for me to work and to build a new project, to do a new thing. Okay, this is. And you see the results in that when you are going with the flow of the universe, when you are, planting the seeds and watering them in proper measure and at the proper time. There's an effect, when you go out of your way to do something to be of greater benefit to the system that you're playing in. It's a huge benefit to you. So, that's why I wanted to come and do the show, because it's really all you guys too. It's easier for other people, I think, even than Mr. Perfectionist, to totally get on all my astrology things. Granted, I'm doing plenty of things to learn and grow, as we all should, and but at the same time, I do encourage everyone to, you give 100%. I know that give 101%, give 110%. I was like that my whole life, and so much of my lessons in the later part of my life has just been to, please, Jesse, just show up and do a good job like you do. There's no need to overdo it. I overdid it when I was helping my family because I wanted to show them how much I loved them, and I hurt my neck and I hurt my shoulder. It's all swollen. Sucks. But it was a lesson in me just giving a little too much. I got a little spent, and at a certain point I should have, well, granted, I should have just been carrying those boxes differently, but, different things to think about. Granted, it was me being overly enthusiastic that I didn't come to a better place and take care of myself while I was taking care of my family. Life is always a lesson, unfortunately. But fortunately, because we can learn, it doesn't have to be us banging our heads against the wall. That tends to be the thing. We'll get signs, and we get, pointed in the right direction, but we don't listen. And then we get like signs on the other end where we're in pain or having bad interactions with people or bad situations because we didn't really pay attention to what was really going on in the universe. So anyway, astrology is about really connecting with the ebb and flow of the universe and your personal ebb and flow of the universe. Don't get bogged down by the signs and stuff. All signs are meant to be transcended, and these proclivities and imbalances of the signs are meant to be brought into balance. But they're also the greatness of the people, the unique people on planet Earth. Everybody is really uniquely awesome in their own way. If you can, get to the heart of who they are and really what makes their heart tick, or how they like to go about their business. And, there are just wonderful attributes to every sign. And, it all working in cohesion, a world working in cohesion with all these signs working in cohesion. That's the place we want to get to. We want to get to this place. So, don't let anybody demonize any of the signs, but you should not reject, your sign and reject some of the information of your sign. I put together a ton of notes earlier today, so I'm just going to kind of go through these a little bit. And I got a bunch of stuff on how the moon and stuff affects the tides. I mean, so the moon is the biggest one, as far as like affecting the tides and gravitational pull of, the oceans. Sorry, my neck is hurting me. I knew at a certain point in time my neck was probably going to start hurting me while I was doing the show, but it's the moving my head around thing. So, the moon is the most has the biggest effect on the water, which is just sort of me, because usually your sun sign is the one that they like to talk about. But the sun, which does have an effect on the water as well, has a lesser effect than the moon. But the planets do subtly have an effect on the moon, especially during like alignments and things like that, which is why the astrological aspect of this plays a part as well. Hopefully I can get through this show. The neck, not so great right now. So the stars, don't really have an effect on the tides. They're further away and whatnot, but, the planets and, there's a lot of things going on. I'm sure the stars are affecting us in grander cycles, and I think the ancient Vedas and various other texts would tell you that they do. But it's kind of obvious that, like, these things would have an effect on the water in your body, and this would be making some sort of imprint. As you know, I hope you know that if you ever watched the documentary, I think it was called "What the Bleep Do We Know," where they were showing, demonstrating the effect that emotion has on water, changing the configurations of water. And whenever you're drinking some water, always think, "Oh, I love you, and I'm so grateful for this," and it'll be really helpful. Oh my God, I'm breaking down. I need to lay down, and my neck and my back. Oof. Okay, I'm gonna get through this. I got my notes, and we'll end it when I'm done kind of skipping through them. So astrology's basically capturing a snapshot of the sky at the moment of your birth, okay? And it's focusing on the position of the sun, moon, and the planets in relation to the 12 zodiac constellations generally. There is an additional sign. We'll talk about that before we go. These constellations, it's the 12 zodiac constellations that lie along the ecliptic, which is like a line of, you can kind of turn this shit into like a dome. What do you call it? A dome? Is that the right thing? Where you turn it into like a merry-go-round or whatever, you put a little bit over it and you spin it around, and it's basically like that circle I was talking about at the beginning of the show. splitting us all up into all these little pieces. And of course, there's different groups depending on a lot of things. So your sun sign, which is what most people know, where you're like Leo and Virgo, etc., it's determined by which zodiac constellation the sun was in at the time of your birth. Similar with the moon. But the sun, it changes roughly once a month as the Earth is orbiting the sun. It represents your core identity and ego and conscious self. And like I said, I'll do like a little brief overview of the signs before I end here, but just kind of just trying to just give everybody just like a little schooling in it, just so you have a basic idea of what's going on, because it is science, and none of the shit that I freaking bring to you is bullshit. It's all stuff that I've looked at long enough to go, this has merit. I was a skeptic for ages. I had to be convinced. If I didn't have clearly people talking in my ear and shit, and had to figure out what was going on from a very realist point of view, I never would have got through it. But from that perspective, I bring you astrology, and it's affecting your life every day. So now your moon sign is where the moon was positioned. The moon moves faster, so that is changing signs all the time, about every 2.5 days. So your moon sign, it makes you a unique version of your sun sign, essentially. You get it? Your sun sign comes up, and it's this whole group this month. The sun is in this position, approximately in the sky. So, you're getting this sort of imprint of lunar and sonar. What do you call that? Pressure. I've heard of lunar pressure, but you don't hear about solar pressure, sun pressure. I don't know what word to use. But that 2.5 days for the moon means, you always see it of just from this day to this day, it's usually broken down, but it's actually based on, some hours and different stuff, so different people might be, which is why you want to try to get your birth time approximately as good as you can to get accurate. The more accurate you can get it, the more you'll be kind of shocked. And that is discrepancies that you might have seen in horoscopes that you've looked at in the past. They're general readings for Virgo, right? So general reading for Virgo is this whole month, but the sun is in that place for roughly a month. The moon is 2.5 days. So 2.5 days during that month, you've got one sort of Virgo, and then 2.5 days later, you've got another sort of Virgo, and 2.5 days later, you've got another sort of Virgo, which is very interesting, right? Well, tell me if you think this is right. Because I just always thought this was interesting, period, but now that I'm saying this to you out loud, I realize it's interesting on this specific level, because my mother, myself, and my youngest son, Grayson, are all born within 3 days of one another in September. My son is born on September 13th, and then 14th, 15th, 16th comes Suzette Snider, and then 17th, 18th, 19th comes me. And that says that no matter how you slice it, we are all Virgos, but we are all different Virgos. We're not the exactly same kind of Virgo, because every 2.5 days, the cycle is changing. And depending on such, I'm assuming we're probably in 3 cycles, but depending on that 2.5 days, I might even be in a slightly different cycle, or Grayson could be in a different cycle. And it's interesting, because me and my mom has a very, very deep relationship, and I've always felt, very connected to her, and my son, before he was born, we got all these messages that he was my I'm realizing something right now about myself. It's personal, but I'm realizing something important. It's good. Thank you. That he was my mom's brother. And my mom had a very deep and good relationship with her brother. And it's funny, like things like, and like there's weird things like when we had brought my son to Great Adventure for the first time. He was just a little kid, and he was just like, I love this place. It was Great Adventure, Adventureland. One of them, I love this place. I love coming here. But he was speaking about it like he'd been there before, and never been there before. He was just a little kid. And a penchant for pasta and other Italian things that my other children don't have, interestingly enough. So there's a lot of interesting things. Plus, especially just, I've become convinced of it because it just lines up with a lot of different things. And there was other kind of spooky things that happened before, before he was born that just really kind of made it seem true. Like my mom likes to go to different psychics and different things, and some of them are but some of them you're just like, what the fuck is going on right now? Like I said, I'm a skeptic. I mean, all these things I listen, I'm just like, but I do know how it works to do it right because I can do it and I do it right. Full disclosure about Jesse Blaze Snider, I do angel card readings, and there's been moments in time where I've done them, for money, just to make some bread, but help people out. And, it's because it takes some time to do it and got to give some energy over or whatever. But it's a really cool process. It's not about you. You're a vessel for information. You're a vessel for the math. And it's really all about the less you can think about what you're doing and the more you can just kind of know what you're supposed to do, which is just, shuffle the cards until you feel like you're not supposed to shuffle them anymore. And then put them down, however you may have been taught to do them or however feels right to you. And then look at the cards and, really see what they say to your intuition. I would always do my readings like this. I'd say, don't tell me anything, and I said, I'm just going to pull a bunch of cards for you. And, and I would, it was funny. Generally, I didn't shuffle very much. My spirits would always just kind of tell me, you're good. I might like cut the deck or something sometimes. But usually I would, take them out, get them settled in my hand, and they would just kind of go, pull cards. So I'd pull cards, and I have like an arrangement that I do that was sort of created by me based on some of the what's her name? She made all the angel decks, and then she became a devout Christian, and she doesn't believe in witchcraft anymore. So she made Dorian Virtue. Was a wonderful deck that I had, and I gave it away, actually, and the exact same deck came back to me through a friend's mother who passed away and wanted it to be given to me. And it was my deck. I love that deck. Still have that deck. So, I lay out the cards, and I would tell the person, okay, if I knowing nothing and just saying what these cards are saying to me right here, X, Y, Z, does this mean anything to you? And I swear to you, I've only had like maybe 3 people ever like fight me. Generally speaking, everybody is always like, yeah, actually, and I like to do it that way because it's just, don't tell me anything. Don't let me affect your reading. I don't want to be like, I'm not affecting the reading. You're not supposed to affect the reading. You are literally just the person who's putting down the cards and then looking at the cards going, well, what can I learn from this if I'm thinking that there's something to learn from this? And that's the thing. You honor the cards. These are the cards. This is what the message is. And the 3 people, I swear, who who fought me, because I didn't like fight them back. I just sort of went, okay. And then I just started going through each card, and I just started going, okay, so let me just ask you a couple questions. And I just sort of went, is there any sort of situation like this? And like started breaking, one of the cards down as opposed to like the whole thing. And they went, well, yeah, actually, such and such, whatever. And I was like, okay. And I said, is there any situation like this? And she said, oh, yeah, well, if I think about it, and every single time, they were just sort of in denial of the read, instead of me summing it up. But when they broke it down into parts, they were like, well, actually, all those parts are true. and it's not that I'm such a good card reader. It's that I'm so aware that I got nothing to do with it. It's not me. I'm just, a vessel being used to, hopefully, like for me, like my only stake in it is like to do a good reading and have people be like, that was awesome. I love that, So, for me, I'm very happy to get the fuck out of the way, because I know I'll do the best reading imaginable if I just get out of the way and let it come in to to the room. But tarot, it's something that, and I'll do an episode, at length on, tarot in the future, but similar sort of things, numbers and only so many sort of life paths, and so the hero's journey, which is I forget what the guy's name who wrote that book, but the hero's journey sort of demonstrates a limited scope of ways in which we can pet the cat as opposed to skinning the cat. And it's true. There's only so many ways we can really take on this journey. That's why films, you don't have to be black to love Blade, and you don't have to be white to love Batman, and any vice versa. Stories, there are only so many stories. We all relate to each other's stories. And you don't have to be anything but human, or even, other, to have empathy and be able to imagine what other people are experiencing, because we're all experiencing similar things, even though they may be colored in different, there's a million different jobs. However, there's less romances, hundreds of thousands, let's say thousands of romances and relationship types and the combinations of both. And, the details matter less and less and less. It's really just like, well, what kind of worker are you? I work in a lot of industries. I work in comic books. I work in music. I work in TV, voiceover and film. And, I've really worked in a lot of little places. And it's all the same personalities. And I have a lot of friends too, in all these adjacent fields and whatnot. Like my film experience is largely through my brother. But he deals with all the exact same shit that I deal with. It's just all the exact same types of people and types of relationships and types of quagmires. And it's, it's just framed differently. We have all these different TV shows, but at the heart of the TV shows, they're all fundamentally about similar things, because there's only so many fucking human experiences on this earth. And that's, what we're having. And this is why astrology, is a thing. And like I said, I'll do something on tarot and angel cards and things like that another day. What should we get into next? Oh yes, let me finish with my notes, and I'll get the heck out of here. Okay, so we got the sun's going every month, and the moon's going every 2.5 days. The other thing you might have heard about is your rising sign. Or ascendant. This is the sign that was rising on the eastern horizon at the exact moment and location of your birth. So like a new sign in that kaleidoscope, or not kaleidoscope, I don't know what to call it. What do you call the thing on top of parasol? So the thing that's like coming up, that like we're starting to get into the other energy. Okay, so starting to get into that other energy, that has some sort of effect on you. That changes every 2 hours. So that's why, getting your exact time of birth matters. 2 to 5 days. You got an exact time. Because 2 to 5 days too, like that cutoff within that certain period of time. Like say you're born within that cutoff range, and you don't know it might. Well, that's a big difference. What your moon sign will be, and then obviously even harder to get your rising sign if you don't have like an exact time of birth. I think mine is like is a little wibbly wobbly with my mom, but I think she had it within 2 hours, and my sister was convinced that she was able to get it good when she had done mine. I'll tell you a little bit about mine. I guess when I get to Virgo. So apparently, this rising sign is your outer mask. It's how you appear to other people and your approach to life. But your moon sign tends to reflect your emotional world, your instincts, and your subconscious. And your sun sign represents your core identity, as we were saying before, your ego and your conscious self. And ego doesn't always necessarily have to be a bad thing. Ego is like, if you didn't have any ego at all, it's like you couldn't pick out ice cream. You'd be like, I don't know, whatever. Or you'd be like, ooh, I really enjoy chocolate chips. I have a preference for this. And that's okay to have a preference for that and be in the mood for something or whatever it is. So for the planets in signs, each of the classical planets, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, and modern ones, like Uranus and Neptune, Pluto, are placed in signs at your birth. So each governs different aspects of personality. Your communication is Mercury, Venus is love. So that's, sort of a subtle thing, like overall where these things are in the sky, what is the dominant energy of the moment, depending on where they are in their rotation or moving around, that affects you as well. And these are the four things what is it saying? Oh, I guess I don't remember. I didn't write down how often that was changing or whatever. I think that's a longer period, the planetary movements. The stars. I wrote some things down here. I'll skip. So, in short, astrology's mapping the position of the sun, the moon, the planets, and, against a symbolic kind of backdrop of star-based constellations. And this is to understand different energies and archetypes and different personality types and personality dynamics. You really learn a lot about them. I mean, it's really true, fundamental things about different, signs and whatnot and how they work with one another. That's it is just the nature of things. If your sign's not looking accurate, it might be because you don't have the accurate sign. But generally speaking, I always get things out of my my zodiac kind of astrological conversation. I don't know, reading or whatever you might. There's a lot of people that I'll listen to on YouTube when I want some insight into what's going on with me right now. And I always get something out of it. Even though I would consider myself a rather elevated Virgo, I'm still not kind of all the way there yet. I'll get to me in a second. Talk about me in a second. I want to make it all about me. So, I'm going to skip all this shit. Okay. So, I have all the signs kind of broken down like a little bit, with just like some of the major tenets for them. And you can choose to go with the normal signs, but I think that because our calendar has been broken up strangely, there should be 13 moons. There are 13 lunar cycles, and they break up evenly, and it's like really strange, our calendar. I don't understand why they do it the way they do it. Well, I do actually. It's another one of those things they don't want you to know. Go look it up yourself. I'll get to it one day. But I think there should be 13 months. If there were 13 months and there's 13 lunar cycles, it seems more likely that there would be 13 signs. And there is, in a lot of cultures have a 13th sign, and I'm going to talk about it as I talk about all the signs right here. So Aries, you might call them the initiator. They are a fire element, and they're kind of like a warrior of will. You might think of like Wonder Woman. Key traits would be boldness and leadership, action. And they, are considered, people who ignite cycles, the divine spark of, change. 2, you got Taurus, is the stabilizer. They're an earth element, earth elemental. They're not an earth elemental. They're an earth. They're of the earth. There's reasons when you get deeper into astrology what this means to be more fire energy, but like you understand it. You've seen people who are more passive like water and who are more fiery like and are firm, strong, salt of the earth. There's a reason why we speak like that, and those sort of verbal, extra descriptive terms that paint that picture. Somebody is the salt of the earth, but we know what that means. So they're an earth element. They're probably somebody who is, on some level, the salt of the earth. Their role, builder of beauty, key trait. They're grounded they're grounded, salt of the earth, sensual and resourceful. And they sort of help to ground energy and spirit into form, sort of bring things into life. Grounded people, supportive people, sensual people are supportive. They're supportive of loving. You might think of like Samwise Gamgee, like a supportive friend. Okay. Number 3, you got Gemini, the messenger. They're an air element. They call them sometimes the seeker of stories. They're curious, communicative, dual, and basically are said to be transmitters of divine information. Usually, air elementals are connected to source and can be intuitive, and they're looking to learn and have lots of information. You think of like somebody like Spider-Man, just a thinker, but also a learner, somebody who's very respectful and, to all the science teachers. Oh yes, Dr. Robert, but he's also a good scientist himself. Sorry for all my superhero references. For Cancer, you could call them the nurturer. They're a water element. Guardians of the heart, and also kind of even more so intuitive, but protective and emotional. Guarding people's feelings. They're people who protect other people's souls' evolution a lot of times. People who like hold space for others to grow. I don't know who's a good... Like, I don't know, to some degree you think like maybe like 11 from Stranger Things.
She's like deeply emotional, and she's psychic and shit. Maternal. It's a girl. 5, you got Leo. You could call him the radiator. We're back to the fire element. They call them sometimes the flame of inspiration, like a muse sort of inspiration, like the other person was into it, but this is like somebody who's inspiring, confident, creative, joyful, kind of radiate light and bit of ego. So I mean, these are all things that like can go wrong but can go right. It's all kind of perspective on these things. Somebody like Tony Stark would probably be a good choice. Iron Man, for those of you who are not forget his name. So 6, Virgo. So Virgo's the alchemist. You got the earth, the sacred servant, is my thing. It precise, analytical, humble. I'm not saying that because I'm a jerk. It's like how it boils down to the thing. I know people don't think that I'm humble because I put myself out there and I'm like, I'll say a lot of things because I have a sense of humor, and I think some things are funny, and I think people's reactions to things are funny sometimes. So but I am a pretty humble guy. I try to be a pretty humble guy. I bring all this information to you humbly, not trying to be a jerk and be like, I know all of the things. So, I've set out to learn some things. I feel like I have, and I'd like to be able to share them. And hopefully, you guys think that it's worth your time. That's it. That's how we do it. Donatello's a good kind of pick for me. The meticulous, kind of gadget-oriented craftsman who kind of likes to be in the background. I know my particular Virgo journey, apparently I'm a Virgo in 6 houses, and I don't even understand exactly how I'm a Virgo in 6 houses. I don't even understand, because all I know is like the 4 different placements, but like I know there's more, and so I still don't understand it great, but my sister understood it, and did like a real deep dive into me. And she said, Jesse, you must be like one of the most meticulous people on planet Earth. And I went, am I? I feel like that sometimes. Because that makes a lot of sense. Because I drive myself crazy. I've broken myself of a lot of my craziness, but like, because I used to really drive myself nuts. I was just really detail oriented and hard on myself. Like I couldn't get on camera in a hoodie and a hat. And, I'm freshly shaven, but like, I'm on camera right now doing testing, getting used to talking on camera, because I'm a little bit uncomfortable talking on camera because I'm meticulous and perfection oriented, and it freaks me out. So it's really hard for me. And, my sister tells me, like, well, let me go back a click, because I'll just say about myself. Like, I've realized about myself that, like, I would have been so much happier because I was very largely kind of pushed into the forefront of things. But I would have been much happier as an editor, as a music producer, being in the background, guiding the stories and working within the system to make things great. I would have loved that. And my sister did my horoscope, and she said, your like cosmic journey based on your horoscope is to make peace with being the center of attention. And I just went, I hate being the center of attention. Like, I do it. I know that you're like, Jesse, I've seen you be the center of attention. Yeah, I do it. And I'm good at it. I like, if I thought I was terrible, I would get out of there. Because I'm a major perfectionist, but there's a certain amount of anxiety that goes for me with it. Like, I went out last night with my friends to this like thing, and I was supposed to be like meeting people and being friendly, and the room was just really packed and loud. And I'm just a bit sensitive to noise and lots of people's bodies and everything. And I mean, I'm not like grossed out by anybody or whatever. Like, I love people really, but like when I don't know people, I'm a little shy. When I know everybody, I'm like the life of the party. Like, if I feel safe to make people laugh and to have a good time, I love to make people laugh. I love to have a good time. So, and that's why I'm a pretty good front man, for a band, because I'm about let's all have a great time. And for me, that's the reward, when I see people smiling and laughing and having fun. That's what I like to do. And I like to do it when other people are into it. So let's all get into it. And, I can have a good time now because, we're all having a good time together. So that's like the saving grace for me, really, with like being the center of attention, is like when I can feel comfortable. And on stage, it's easier. And, you slowly connect with an audience over time. But I don't really like it, generally. And I've connected to some past lives that are a bit gnarly, just very faintly. But just to, having a mob come to get me because they didn't like what I was saying. They didn't understand, what I was saying. I know I'm loved, and I'm sure that whatever I was doing was founded in my loving nature. But, people get confused. There's lots of religious wars on planet Earth. There's lots of reasons why people get burnt at the stake sometimes. You're a witch, and, you're just trying to help people. But I think that's maybe helped to give me a little bit of a aversion to groups. And I've had in my life just, I've had bad experiences with groups of friends when I was in, not high school, but like middle school. I was done with groups of friends by high school because I had like one new person entered the group, and he ended up like poisoning everybody against me. And just all of a sudden, just like overnight, everybody like hated me and like had all this like problem with me. It was like telling me off. I didn't understand what had happened. I like kind of figured out later. It's like this dude like kind of came in and was like, Jesse sucks, and like made up a bunch of rumors about me. And it wasn't true. But like after that, I was like, man, that's way too easy. They were ready to lynch me, and like none of it was true. And in my family, and things with my family are wonderful now. But I had a few moments early in my life that also the group came down on me as a group. And, I don't think my dad understood what he was doing. He was, tough love, whatever. But, like, he kind of brought the group together to chastise me as a group. And I was, at the time, just like, ugh, my whole family's here. Everybody's got a problem with me. And this crazy perfectionist that I am, I'm always trying to be the best version of myself. If I'm doing something other than that, it's a mistake that I'm making unintentionally. So, but sometimes I'll like find things out and I'm like, I'm what? I'm doing what? And I don't remember what. Oh, actually, I think yeah. I used to talk about myself a lot. I didn't mean to do this. And you may say, Jesse, you're talking about yourself a lot now. I talk about myself occasionally on the show just as an example because it's the easiest example for me to pull. If it was easier for me to remember other people's similar examples from spiritual books I've read or spiritual talks I've heard, I would tell you those ones because I'm self-conscious about talking about myself too much. I only mention it when it's naturally come to mind. But what was I even saying that? See, I got all self-conscious, and now I've lost track of my thoughts. But yeah, I mean, it just all boils down to this thing of I'm not very comfortable being the center of attention, and hearing that my life's path goal was being the center of attention, like being comfortable with it, it kind of made me gag because I just went, oh God, like I don't know how I thought I was going to go about being a rock star, like because I always just wanted to be my father's equal, and but I always had this idea that somehow I could just get the respect and like I didn't have to do the other things. or some of the other things I wouldn't have to do. I wouldn't be as recognizable or like whatever as my dad was. Um, and so far so good. But I definitely always had like a little some minor scaredy cat vibes. You know, when I go to conventions, I kind of try to stay towards the edges. You know, I get through crowds fast. I like to stay on the edge of crowds, not like in the middle. I don't like being in the middle of crowds. I am not a March of the Penguins kind of guy. But yeah, your specific sign ought to be, you know, it will be interesting in and of itself because it will be a measure of all these things. I so happen to be like a Virgo, but you may be something else. Anyway, moving on. Oh, and Virgos, if you're a Virgo out there and you want to know, they it's like they speak in a lot of like, you know, sort of like esoteric magical terms, but you would say they refine the divine into purity. You know, they bring to life in beautiful measure things brought forth from the other side. A good Virgo is hopefully channeling the infinite on some level, subconsciously or otherwise. I do it now all the time, consciously, but I used to do it unconsciously when I'm writing songs and things like that. And the care that you put into things is, you know, it's important, and it even though you transcending the Virgo thing is like caring less about being so you know, so perfect. But the years of being so perfect leads you to being generally not perfect, but you always show up pretty close, and you just kind of make peace with pretty close. And as you make peace with pretty close, you get better. It's great. Like it was wonderful for me because I was very good at what I did, you know, artistically. But when I made peace with perfection, I found my way easier to my inspiration and my intuition, and my art improved so much. My songwriting improved so much, and I was good before, but wow, I mean, like, I hesitate to take credit for a lot of things that I do sometimes because I meditate and I work with plant medicine, and I'll come out of my sessions with just so many things that at least seem like a co-collaboration between myself and the spirits, and it's wonderful. It's a wonderful thing. Okay, so 7, you got Libra, the harmonizer. Element is air. They're the balancer of opposites. They're diplomatic, fair, authentic. Holds equilibrium in polarity. They're just, you know, the peacemakers, bringing together the polarity that is the universe, bringing it to equilibrium. Somebody like Vision might be like a good choice for this kind of person's vibe. From, again, sorry, another Avengers reference. The Vision. 8, you've got Scorpio, the Transformer. Elements water. They are the Death Walker. Intense and private, but magnetic. You know, people love what they can't get, you know. They like to call them the shepherd of rebirth and shadow work. You know, people who are usually coming from other lives with a lot of past stuff to shift and move. Batman's a good person to think of for the Scorpio. 9, you've got 9 is the 13th one that you don't generally hear about. It's between the end of November and December 17th. And it's Ophiuchus. I don't know how to pronounce it. I've only read it. Ophiuchus, the Awakened. And Ophiuchus is like a big deal. The element is spirit. It's an ether element. And they call him the serpent holder or healer, the bridge. They are mythical, healing, revolutionary. They say that they activate DNA and they unite above and below. Like Doctor Strange, some sort of next level adept. My brother, I think, is actually one of the. I sent him the thing today. I said, "Hey, you're a special sign, and I think you probably think you're a different sign than you are." But I dug into this a little while ago, but I didn't realize that it was during his birthday. And then I went, "Oh, look at this!" So I sent it to him as like a affirmation because it's if you're that sign, it is a pretty big deal. Anyway, 10. Sagittarius, the Seeker, element of fire, the adventurer of truth, philosophical, freedom-loving, expansive, carries the fire of wisdom across worlds. Is somebody who's learning and taking it with them and bringing it other places and spreading it like seeds. Indiana Jones, kind of type person. At 11, you've got Capricorn, the architect, their earth element. They are the master of time, disciplined and ambitious, ancient, generally older souls. And they sort of ancient wisdom, like they are good at manifesting their, sort of wisdom in through legacy in the 3D world. You'd think about like Professor X from the X-Men, or somebody similar like that, the guy from Doom Patrol. 12, Aquarius is the visionary. And remember, there's one more because we added in the 13th one. Aquarius is visionary. They're elemental. They're air. My girl's an Aquarius. They are the breakers of systems. Innovative, rebellious, and communal. And that totally describes my gal. Innovative, hell yeah. Rebellious, hell yeah. And communal, yeah. She loves community. Why is she such a great manager? She's great with people. And they download future codes. They are psychics. They see where things can go, where things are going. And that's true of my girl as well. You might think of Neo. They're the one awakening the system, liberating the mind, rewriting reality. That kind of stuff. All in a day's work. Last one is 13, Pisces in this case. The dreamer. Pisces is water, the mystic of the sea. They are compassionate, spiritual, and multidimensional. And I went out with a girl who I very much loved, who was a Pisces. And that describes her to a T. She was very compassionate, very spiritual, and very multidimensional, for better and for worse. When it comes to all of these signs, I would always say it to my my ex-wife, the things that I love about you tend to be the things that aggravate me about you. There's some other aspect of being like this that is a little aggravating, but, I deal with it. I handle it because I love you, and I love those things about you that also yield this other result, which maybe isn't always so great. Dissolves ego into unity, I wrote. Dissolves ego into unity. Yeah. Yeah, they're very sort of aggressively up against the sort of ego and trying to bring it into community. Bring it into a compassionate alignment. Sometimes or often to their detriment. So that is all of the signs. I'm just trying to think. I'm looking at my just notes here. Is there anything else that I wanted to tell you? Just in case you are in that new, I can't pronounce the fucking name, Ophiuchus, the 13th sign. It is, I had it written down somewhere in here. It is between November 29th and December 17th. That's the sun's position for this sign. And my brother actually messaged me during the show saying, wow, thank you, Jesse. This was really this really resonated. This struck a chord with me. And I'm really happy to hear that. Happy to hear that. That's why I do the tarot readings. That's why I do all this shit. Because I love you. That's why I do the show. Because I love you. Love people. Love information. Love learning things. And love to share all that information. Anyway, I love you. You're awesome. Thanks for listening to the show. I'll try not to miss any more this year. I usually have been pretty good last year with staying on schedule for my shows, especially my Monday shows. Always in for my Monday show. But I did help my parents move, and I had just gotten behind, and at a certain point when I got injured, it was just like, all right, I'm just gonna leave myself off the hook here, and I'm gonna show up on Monday, and I'll do a great show on Monday, and we'll come back around. And I think it was a great show. Hopefully you learned something. Hopefully it resonated with you. Go out there. Learn about yourself through this thing. Don't be afraid of these things. There are people out there who are legit. And the information, which can be a little wibbly wobbly depending on the person that it's coming from or whatever, like in terms of the interpretation, there's plenty of the right people out there for you and the right interpretations that will resonate with you. And I'm telling you, you'll get something out of doing the thing. I don't know if you're going to be a billionaire. You're going to have to work on a lot of other things. But I think you will get some benefit from learning your astrology. So go out there and do it. And join me every Wednesday and Saturday for Coolest Geek Alive, my entertainment show. I do picks on Saturdays of my favorite movies and TV shows, recent and from the past. Check those out. And join me next Monday for another fucking awesome episode of Everything They Don't Want You to Know. Later, skater.
There's something in the water. There's something in the air. The proof is all around us. The symptoms are everywhere. It's not a matter of time. Sure as the blaze in your eyes. I sense a subtle shift. Instincts I can't resist. Weary of wolves in disguise. Drunk on a gallon of wine. Red as the rivers you dried. Bad apples spoil the punch. Bruises and rotten fronts. You've got a thirst you can't hide. There's something in the water. There's something in the air. The proof is all around us. The symptoms are everywhere. There's something in the water. There's something in the air. The proof is all around us. The symptoms are everywhere. Might be a fault of design. A bark as bad as its bite. Fooled by a flash of teeth. Sharp tongues that lie beneath. Words that could eat you alive.